Good evening. How is everyone tonight? It is Linda Stacy of Living Blueprints. It is a Wednesday night and I'm in Chicago and I'm feeling a little fired up, and I'm going to talk about chapter 5 of the Optimized You book, and this is all about contingency. I'm not sure why exactly I'm fired up, but I just feel like we're all on this planet to do something and that we should be doing things that are significant, and sometimes we don't get out of our own way. So in terms of contingency, this is all about creating a little bit more time, space, buffer in your life, and giving yourself a little bit of space to get things done. And in the book, I talk about the lesson that was taught to me through a financial practice that I was putting in place with my husband. We used Dave Ramsey's system of financial peace in order to get out of debt years ago. And one of the first things that you do in Dave Ramsey's system is you put $1,000 aside as a little bit of an emergency fund. And it just helps because things will go wrong always, right? We're trying to get out of debt. We're piling all of our cash into cutting things down, and then something crazy will happen, like we'll need our tires replaced or something, and then what do? And you end up kind of exasperating the problem around debt. So you create this little bit of a buffer, right, by having an emergency fund. And this really is very applicable to one's life in terms of having time buffers wherever and however we can. So, some of this is just around planning our day to day. And I come from a background where I just wasn't taught this very well. I wasn't taught, having things kind of in place and ready before I left for events or doing things. I mean, I've definitely transformed my entire life, but they say you teach best what you most need to learn. And this is absolutely something I had to learn over time, that I had to create more time and space so that I could have more ease in my life and do things ahead of time instead of, waiting, even like with getting gas and things like that. Just doing them when it made sense instead of just putting things off. Back in the day when I would be leaving for a trip on an airplane, I would, leave things even till the next morning, even when I had to get up at 3:15 to get on a plane. And it just didn't make any sense. This morning, I got on a plane to fly to Chicago. I'm here in Chicago now. And I actually arrived early and sat in the car for 10 minutes before even getting into the airport. So things have really transformed. But I think one of the ways that people can do this in their jobs, so much of what we do these days is reactionary. We are constantly responding to emails and requests for help and service, and it's just part of everyone's job, it seems, to be in constant reaction. I mean, even if you're an executive, you don't have the luxury of just kind of sitting there and focusing on your work. At least that's the world that I live in. So the biggest lesson around this for me has been, when I am planning, not to plan 100% of my day according to project work, that, if 40% of every day is spent responding to things, then plan for that. Plan that I can only use 60% of my day for actual project work. Actually look at the amount of time that you have available and how much time is being spent in reactionary mode, and just relax a little bit around it. So much of the stress that we create in life is our own judgment about how we're getting things done or how we're not getting things done. And I think if we can just ease up on that a little bit and remember what the big goals are and keep our eye on the prize and know that we're moving towards that, that's really what it's all about. And however we can create a little bit more space between events, the better off we are. Just a little bit of time buffer here and there. In the book, I give the whole more example around financial buffers, and that when we were first putting this financial plan into place, I mean, my husband was going through the last 12 months of spending and looking at all of these categories of spend that I didn't even realize I was spending on. It's the same thing with your time. Go back over the last 3 days, the last week, and really understand how you're really spending your time, so that when you're planning, you can be much more thoughtful about where you can put in a little bit more space so that things can happen better, or if there's an emergency, you have time to respond to it, or you can just be more relaxed about it. The more that we can just relax and get through and keep our eye on the prize, I think the better that we are. Give yourself whatever freedom you can, and remember that we're all here to do awesome things. So do awesome things on this planet, okay? And I'll try to get on a little bit more. It's been kind of a crazy time in terms of travel. I hope everyone is doing really well. Again, create some space for yourself, some time in between things, and you'll have a better experience of it all. All right? Good night.